Hello everyone. Welcome to this Highway Tabernacle Tech Team training on ProPresenter. In this video we're going to discuss screens, how to set up the screens, which screens to set up, screen sizes, things like that. So let's talk about the various screens that we have at Highway. So the first screen that I want to talk about is our live stream lobby screen. The live stream screen and the lobby screen share the same information. We send the same signal to both screens. Now those screens are set up to be 1920 wide by 1080 pixels tall. Okay, that's a standard screen size, 1920 by 1080. So we'll set that screen up. And again, in ProPresenter, you don't need to have a physical screen to be able to create a screen. You can create a virtual screen to match exactly the screens that you'll be setting up for real. Okay, so we'll set up the live stream lobby screen first. The next one will be our wide screen. So in the front of our sanctuary, we have 3 screens that we combine into one wide screen. So if one screen is 1920, 3 screens across will be 5760. Okay, so the widescreen size will be 5760 by just 1080, right? 1 screen high, but 3 screens wide. The next screen we're going to create is the center screen. So if you think about what we do at Highway is when we have video playing on the outside screens, like our announcements video, then our center screen will show a graphic, right? So that center screen is 1 screen wide, so that'll be 1920 by 1080. So we'll set that up. And the thing that we'll need to understand is that the center screen actually is part of this 3-screen set of screens. So we're going to use actually the same screen to create our center screen, and I'll show you how we do that. The next one are the outside screens. So what do we know about the outside screens? Well, they're one of the 3, 2 of the 3, right? But I say 1 because we're sending the same signal to both outside screens. So they are a match or a mirror of each other. We don't have something different on the left screen that we have on the right screen. They're both the same always. So that's why we're going to create 1 screen called outside screens, and it's going to be just 1 screen wide, 1920 by 1080. You'll see how we do that. Okay, so there's 4. And then the last screen that I want to create is the back screen. So the back screen is the screen that the singers will see and the musicians will see on the back of the sanctuary. It has the lyrics and what's coming up on the next slide, information for the people on stage. Those are called stage screens. So we're going to create that, and that also is 1 screen wide, 1920 by 1080. All right, so those are the screens that we're going to create. So let's head into ProPresenter, and let me change my camera so that it's down here at the bottom. All right, so how do we create screens? Well, currently we have 1 screen. And by the way, screens are broken out into 2 types. There's an audience screen, screens that the congregation sees, screens that people see when they're in the audience. And then there's stage screens. People on stage can see these screens. Okay, so those are stage screens. And you can see up here we have audience and stage. So let's go in and start creating our screens. To create the screens, we're going to go to the Screens menu and select Configure Screens. And when you do that, we'll have this dialog come up. and it's going to show the one screen that we have selected. Okay, in my case, it's tied to this monitor. Okay, we're actually going to get rid of this, but remember I said before, ProPresenter has to have at least one screen in here, so I can't just come in here and delete it. I can't right-click and delete it because there are no other screens. So let's create our first screen, which was the live stream/lobby screen. Okay, so to create, that's an audience screen, right? Something the audience sees. So we're going to click the plus sign here, and we're going to select, you could select a physical screen. These are the two physical screens that I have. Or, in our case, we're going to select this placeholder. We're going to select a new placeholder, and we want it to be 1920 by 1080, and we use 59.94 frames per second. That's what that number is. So select 1920 by 1080 P5994. Select that. Okay, let's give it a name. We'll call this live stream. So that's just the name of the device itself, the screen itself. The actual screen that's referenced in ProPresenter is here. Okay, so let me show you. If I move this over just a little bit, you see in this drop-down list here, I now will have screen and screen 1. Well, I don't want it to say screen 1, so we're going to rename this. You can rename it a couple ways. You could right-click on it and select rename and then give it a name. Or you can come up here and double-click on this name and give it a name. So I'm going to do that, live stream /lobby. So this is now my live stream lobby. So if I come over here, there it is, live stream lobby. So this is my live stream lobby screen. We said it is 1920 by 1080. Full means that whatever signal we're sending to this screen will cover the entire screen. That's what full is. And we'll talk about these when we get to the center screen and the outside screens. Okay, so now that I have a new screen selected or created, I can remove this old one. So I'm going to right-click on screen and delete. So now I just have my live stream lobby screen. Okay, the next screen I want to create is my wide screen. That's 3 screens in one. So again, I'll come up here to the plus sign, and I will select new placeholder. And we said the widescreen is 5760. Well, that's not here. So we have to go to custom size. And we're going to call this, I'm going to call it triple head. And the reason for that is the triple head in our sanctuary is the device that we use to send one signal to 3 screens. It's called a triple head. So that's what I'm going to call it here, so that I know that this is going to the front 3 screens. And then the width we said is 5760, and the height will be 1080. Click OK. There we go. There's our nice wide screen. And again, whatever signal we're sending to this screen, we want it to go to the full screen, to all of it, 5760 by 1080. Okay. And this single up here indicates that this is just one screen. You could have multiples, and we'll get to these later. So let's rename this. I'll do it a different way this time. I'll right-click and rename, and we will call this widescreen. So now over here in my drop-down list, I have widescreen, which is the big widescreen, and I have the live stream. All right, so that's it for that one. What's next? Center screen. Well, remember, the center screen uses one of the 3 screens that's part of this widescreen. Okay, so to create the center screen, we're going to come in here to the plus sign. It's an audience screen, right? And instead of new placeholder, we're going to select this triple head because it is one of the 3 screens that the triple head uses. Now, one thing you'll notice when you do that is you have this this warning symbol here. This is telling you that you're already using triple heads someplace else. So you want to make sure that you're not sending the exact same signal to both of these screens because it could cause problems in ProPresenter. Okay, so we do want triple head, but we don't want it to be 5760 by 1080. We just want the center portion of these 3 screens. All right, so to do that, it is one single screen that we're creating, right? Just one center screen. So instead of sending this signal to the full 3 screens wide, we're going to send it, if I hit the drop down, to 3 by 1. So we're going to split this full screen into 3 equal sections. Okay, you could split it into 2 sections. You could split it into 4 sections. So you could have 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. Okay, but we're going to go 3 by 1. And that'll make 3 sections across. And then notice that we have 3 sections here. We need to just choose which of the 3 we want for the center screen. In this case, we want the center one. Notice the screen size is 1920 by 1080 because we're only using one portion of this triple head. Okay, so let's rename this to center screen. And that's how we set that up. We use our triple head, but we only pick one part of it, the center part. Okay, and that's it for the center screen. The next screen are the outside screens. So the outside screens, same thing, right? We're selecting the wide screen. We want to use the triple head because it's part of the 3 screens, but we want the outside screen. So we want 2 of them and not just 1. How do we do that? Well, let's find out. So we'll click the plus sign here, and again we'll select triple head. And I'm going to rename this right away just so that I remember what it is. So this is my outside, if I can spell, outside screens plural. There we go. Okay, so the last time we did this, we selected 3 by 1. We know we want that because we want to split this widescreen into 3 separate screens. But we don't want just one screen. We want to send the same signal to 2 screens. Okay? So instead of single, we're going to select mirror. And this will let us mirror this signal to as many different outputs as we want. Well, I'm wrong. Up to 5, apparently. Okay? So in our case, we just want 2 screens. So it's going to send the same signal. So in this case, the left screen, we have the left of the 3 screens selected. And then over here on this one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select our triple head, and we're going to go 3 by 1. But this one will be the outside screen. So now we're sending the signal for the outside screens to both the left of the 3 screens and the right of the 3 screens by using the mirror option. Pretty cool. Okay, and again, we're still using this 5760 by 1080 wide screen. Okay, so that's how we set up our outside screens. Let's talk about the stage screen. So the stage screen, if you remember, is the screen in the back of the sanctuary where people on stage can see it. So we'll click the plus sign here. We'll go to new placeholder because this is a brand new screen, And again, we're going to choose our 1920 by 1080 5994. All right, we'll call this back. And I like to call the stage screen the back screen. And that's really all there is to that one. Now, we will also go through here and actually set it up. And I'll show you how to do that. But there are all of our screens set up properly. The live stream lobby is one screen. Widescreen is 3 screens across. Center screen uses the center of those 3 screens. And the outside screens use the outside of those 3 screens. And then our stage screen is just a separate screen in the back of the room. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other stuff on this page. Let's come up here to screen color. So screen color, we don't really use this, but you could select a color. So if I clear everything right now, it's black, which is the default for ProPresenter. But you can make it some other color. If I wanted, I could make, let me see, what screen am I on? We're on live stream here. So let me go to live stream. I'll change the screen color for live stream to be cornflower blue. How about that? And now when I click the plus sign, the default color for that screen will be this color. Okay. I can't really think of a use for it. I'm sure there are uses for having a different color as the default color on a screen, but we don't use it. And you can do that for any of the screens, set up a screen color. So I'll just turn that off. It'll go back to black. All right, so that's screen color. Another useful thing, very useful, especially when you are setting up your screens for real, is to do the identify screens. So if I turn on identify screens, it's going to show information on the screen itself in your building, right? So when I'm upstairs on the computer and I'm looking at actual screens, turning on identify screens will turn on this information on each of the screens so that you can make sure that you have your screen set up properly, right? If I come down to widescreen, you're going to see the widescreen with this information. If I go to center screen, and so on. You can see that. Okay, so that's what identify screens is. Then we have test patterns. We don't use test patterns, but you could. If you want to test the color of your projector, things like that, you could send a test pattern to a screen. So let me go back to my live stream. If I select test patterns here, you can select which screen you want to send it to. Individual screens, all the stage screens, all the audience screens. I'm just going to select all screens. And then if you also turn on the identify screens, it will show that same information that it did when you selected it down here. Okay. Logo, if there's a logo you want to show, you could do that. Like if we wanted it to show a highway logo, we could add that as well. But here are the test patterns, and there's a bunch of them that you can choose. I like to use this color bars because it has all the colors and you can really test your projector. So there's the test pattern I want to use. Now to show it, I just click on this show button and you'll see that it'll show it on the screen. Because I selected identify screens, it also shows that identify information. So that's how you can send a test pattern to the screens. Okay, we'll just hide that. These other options down here, this lets you adjust the color of the screen. I don't recommend doing that. I've never found a reason to need to adjust them, but you could. Corner pin lets you change the corners of the screen to make sure that they align properly. And alpha key we'll talk about in another video, a more advanced video, where this lets you set up the information that you're sending to your live stream device, our ATEM, Blackmagic in this case. We send an alpha key so that it knows what to show, what to hide, and that's how it can show all of our graphics and so on our live stream. But I'll talk about that in a future video. All right, and that's it for setting up the screens. One last thing that I want to do is talk about layouts for the back screen. Okay, we can, in our service, we use the back screen for multiple purposes. For example, when the countdown, rolling announcements and the countdown are going on, we show the rolling announcements on the back screen. When we're in the worship or in the message, we show the text, the lyrics for the worship songs or the text for Bible verses and so on the back screen. And we don't show graphics and things like that. So those are called stage layouts. So let's go ahead and close our screen configuration and we'll work on stage layouts. A couple places you can go here to screens, and here you can see we have our current back screen, and this is the stage layout that it's using. There's only one. So you can edit those layouts by clicking on Screens, Edit Layouts. Okay. You can also get there by clicking on the three buttons and go to Stage Editor. So we'll do that. So this is our stage display. This is the default. There are a few that come with ProPresenter, so you can pick, various ones, or you can create a blank one, and we'll create a blank one here in just a minute. So let's talk about this. We have some different tools up here than we've seen before. So let's talk about those. This first one is the current slide. So when you want to see information about the current slide, you would select this. So if you want to see the current slide text, which is what we have here, current slide text, you would select that first one. If you wanted to see notes, so we can create notes, text and chords. We used to show text and chords on the back screen, so all the guitar chords and so on. But in this case, we just use text. So you would click text and it would add the current text slide, or the current slide text onto this layout. And then you can change the font size, and they're currently using text up or down. And that's good, because that means that if the text on the slide doesn't fit in this area right here, it's going to get smaller so that we'll be able to see all of the text. Okay, so that's current slide. The next one is the next slide. So on the stage, the singers like to see what's coming on the next slide so they can be ready to sing it before it actually shows. So that's where you would select the next slide text. Same thing. Go to here, select text, and here it is. So then you would put this on there wherever you want it. Now, one thing that they use that I don't like is, notice they have text down. That means that the next slide area is going to show all of the text on the next slide. Okay, and if there's not enough text, not enough space to fit in here, then the text is going to get smaller. And we don't want that. We want the stage people to be able to see the text as big as it can be. And, realistically, they only need to see the first line or two. So instead of text down, I will change this to none. Okay, so the text for the next slide will always be this font size, but you're only going to see the first couple lines. After that, it'll get cut off. Okay? And that's the way ours is currently set up. Now, on our back screen, we don't have a timer. So I'm going to come in here and delete this timer. So select the timer and just delete it. And then we also don't need the label for the timer. So we're going to delete that. We do use a system clock. The system clock was added by selecting, so timers, system clock. So they click on system clock, it adds it to the slide. All right, so that's how we added it here. So I'm going to leave that. We don't need the countdown, so I'm going to delete that and the label. And then I'm going to take this system clock and I'm going to move it to the lower right corner. And I'm going to make it a little smaller. I don't think it needs to be quite that big. All right, so now I have a little more room. So I like the size of the next slide. So I'm going to move this down. But the current slide, let's make this as big as we can get it so that if there is a lot of text, a lot of lyrics on one slide, it'll show in pretty large font for the singers, okay? So this is the way that I would set up our backstage or our stage display. And I don't care for the name that they gave it. So let's come back over here and select the slide itself. And instead of current plus next text, let's just call this lyrics. I'm going to call it lyrics/message because that's really what we use it for. Lyrics message. Okay. Now remember I said that we also use the back screen to show the rolling announcements and the countdown. And when the announcement video is playing, we show that on the back screen as well. So we need a way to show a video on the back screen. So let's create a brand new slide and we'll make it a blank layout. And let's call this live video or something. Maybe not live, but we'll just call it video because that's basically what we use it for. Call it whatever you like. Okay. All right. So we need to figure out how we're going to get, I want the current outside screens. Whatever's showing on the outside screens is what I want on the back screen, right? So how do we get that on there? Which one of these? Let's see. We have current slide object. That's going to be the lyrics, the text. So we don't want that. Next object, we don't want that. Screen preview. That sounds promising. Won't be timers. It won't be playback markers. So we haven't talked about these. In ProPresenter, there's a way to put a playback timeline on a song. Like if you're playing a song from a recording, right? You can put a timeline on there so that the screens will automatically advance as the song progresses. Okay, we don't use that, so I'm going to skip it. And this is text, this is shapes, custom shape, you've seen this. And then we have some additional things over here that we'll talk about in a minute. But for us, we want the outside screens to show on the back screen. So we're going to go to this one, and we want outside screens. So these are all the screens that we just created. So we're going to select outside screens, and it puts the outside screens here. And then I can just make this full screen. Okay, so if I didn't want to drag and drop this to full screen, what is another way to get this to go full screen? I'll give you just a couple seconds. Okay, another way to do it, we know that the screen size is 1920 by 1080, don't we? So I'm going to come up here, and how do I know that? Well, actually, before I change it, let's go back to just the slide layer. Notice here it says size. 1920 by 1080. Now you can change this by selecting the screen that you want to use. In this case, it's our back screen, which is 1920 by 1080. Okay, so back here where I was. Select this. We're going to change the size to be 1920 by 1080. And there you go, full screen. And that's how we set up our video back screen. So now I'll go back to show. And if I go here to our stage, and let me select the back screen here, I can see just the screen. So currently our back screen is using the lyrics message layout. And I can see that here. If I select this, it's using this lyrics message layout. If I want to show the video, I would select the video layout, and now this will show any video that's playing on the outside screens. Okay, so if I come here and pick this, this will show on our back screen. Okay, because we have the video layout selected. If I change this back to lyrics message, then it'll show any lyrics. So if I'm here and I come back here, now it shows the lyrics, current lyrics, and the first couple lines of the next slide. Okay, and that is stage layouts. So we talked about setting up screens. We talked about creating these stage layouts. And that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful. In the next video, we're going to take a look at audience looks right here. Audience looks lets us determine which layers will get sent to which screens during which portion of the service. Okay? So that's in the next video. I hope to see you there.